Hi, and welcome back to our channel, Pay Down Debt Solutions. I'm Jen, and Dan is off hunting today. It is opening day, and he's a pretty big hunter. He enjoys that, so I'll let him do that today. So today I'm going to go over budgeting with you. We get a lot of people that come and either send us an email or comment about budgeting, and we want to go over, kind of the standard method of budgeting and what that should look like for you, okay? And I always like to talk about my history though. So for those of you that are new to us, I always like to go into a little bit about Dan and I. Dan and I are business owners. Prior to me being a business owner, I actually worked for a bank for 13 years. I was a banker and a branch manager. So I understand banking thoroughly, right? I have a really good knowledge of all of the banking products, how banks operate, how they run their business. And that comes in handy, especially being a business owner. But what I can also tell you is that myself and Dan, we found ourselves in the position that many of you are in, and many of you come to this channel looking for solutions because you're in debt, right? You're in debt and it's starting to be strangling. And so what we do is we talk about our life experience and what Dan and I experienced as we, kind of started out, and how we encountered debt and what we were faced with. So as business owners, you get payment strapped pretty easily depending on the kind of business that you're running. And we had vehicles on the road. So we had businesses where there were maintenance on vehicles. We had to own vehicles. So we had payments for all of those. We had payments for products. So those payments got really, it got to be a struggle after a while, making all those payments. And so we found ourselves, even though we were making money, we found ourselves really payment strapped. And so that's where many of you are today. And we actually, at one point, even considered filing for bankruptcy to see if we could, kind of reorganize and restructure some of this. But, we did have savings, and unfortunately, we couldn't do that when you have savings because you're going to wipe out your savings anyway. So when we consulted with a bankruptcy attorney on this, he kind of looked at all of our picture and said, you guys are kind of between a rock and a hard place. And there really isn't a whole lot you can do without, adding everything into the bankruptcy, which we didn't want to do at the time. So it was right around then that I actually tripped over Velocity Banking, and I learned how to bank a totally different way than we have ever been taught before. And it is through Velocity Banking that we were able to completely change our financial picture and end up where we are today, sitting pretty good, right? So that's why we developed Pay Down, our company, and that's why we're bringing it to all of you, because we understand exactly what that's like. We understand what it's like to feel that way, and we want nothing but the best for you guys. And through watching this channel, you will learn everything you need to know about Velocity Banking and how to run your finances. Because the greatest thing with Velocity Banking is the fact that you have choices, okay? We do that for you. We offer you choices. It's up to you to make the changes though. And so I talked about this scenario here the other day, a customer of ours, and I love this customer scenario because they have lots of different options, okay? They have a lot of different things that they could potentially do with their finances, and they were a lot of fun to do because we sat down and we went through all sorts of different things with them. When they came to us though, one of the things that they were considering was actually refinancing their mortgage, which they did not end up doing. And you guys know I hate refinances. You guys know I don't like mortgages in general. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and what that would have looked like for them. But the first thing that I want to go into with you guys today is budgeting, right? So how do you budget your money? And not only that, when you have an employer and they offer you 401k and you can contribute to your 401k, what should you be contributing? Okay, so lots of people ask us, how they should be contributing to their 401k and if they should be. And absolutely, if you're offered a 401k and you can afford to do it, you absolutely should contribute to that. The percentage is going to be up to you though. So that's going to be based on your financial picture and what you can afford. So the great thing is when you have an employer, a lot of times you'll be able to play around with a calculator for investing your money. So that's, before taxes, right? So this before tax money. So you can take that and take a look at that and change the calculator, whether you do 15%, 20%, 25%. I've heard of people doing 30%, which is pretty incredible if you can do that. Most of us probably can't. I know that when I was contributing, I would do 20 to 25% of my pay. So I would contribute that much. But again, you have to look at your picture and you have to know what you can afford, okay? So when we talk about the standard budgeting method, we're talking about the 50, 30, 20. And the 50, 30, 20 looks like this, okay? So what you would do then is you would look at your needs, okay? Your needs should be 50% of your budget. So your needs are obviously essential for living, okay? So what does that look like? What are your needs? Well, so that would look like, housing. What is your, you have to have a place to live, right? Whether you're renting, you're buying a house through a mortgage or own your house outright, you have housing. And you obviously have food, right? We have to survive. We have to live on food. And oh my God, is food getting so expensive, you guys? It's ridiculous right now. Totally ridiculous. So I can tell you that my food budget for this family has probably increased 30% over the last 3 years, maybe even more. I would have to really dig into the numbers, but offhand, I know it's at least 30% increase, which is absolutely ridiculous. So of course we have housing, we have food, and transportation. So you have to have a car, right? If you're going to work, then most of the time you need to drive there, right? So you've got to drive to work. Now, granted, since COVID, there's a lot of people that get to, stay home and work from home. So that has been an awesome thing for families. That is the only maybe good thing that came out of COVID was that a lot of employers allowed us to work from home. So that was, maybe a good thing. But obviously you have to pay for transportation. You have to pay for basic utilities, right? So basic meaning, the essential stuff like, electric and water, right? Insurance. So you have to have insurance, health insurance for one, house insurance. You have to have insurance on your home. You can't not have that, or you can't have a mortgage. So you have to pay for insurance. You also, essential childcare. So essential childcare basically meaning, if you're going to work, right? If you have to go to work, then your childcare becomes essential because somebody has to watch your kids while you're earning, a living. So essential childcare, I definitely put into this category. So 50% of your budgeting should go to your needs, okay? And then the 30% here represents our wants, all right? And I put that in red here because our wants maybe not necessarily what we, should have, okay? But wants, they say 30% of your budget should be your wants. These are non-essential things. So such as, right? So monthly subscriptions like your Netflix or Hulu, maybe your Amazon Prime, things like that you have, those subscriptions, maybe things that you're paying for. I don't know, these kids with their gaming and Roblox and things like that, like the gaming stuff. I don't know, maybe you think you need that. I don't know. I'm not going to judge, right? Okay, and then hobbies. So hobbies are the things we love to do. So for me, it would be, riding lessons for my daughter. Okay, so we're big into horses. We both ride, getting her riding lessons. Because if you ever try to teach your kids, sometimes it's just easier to have somebody else do it, right? So that's what we're faced with. Anyway, so riding lessons, maybe volleyball camp, maybe some art classes. Maybe you're paying for personal trainers, right? Because you're big into the gym. Maybe you want to pay for a personal trainer. Maybe boating, okay? God, boats are a money pit. What does Dan say? You take a boat and you just like throw money at it because, that's all it is a big, hole for money. Maybe you have a hobby of making jewelry, and so you want to buy stuff to make your jewelry. Or maybe you're into ceramics. Oh my gosh, my grandma did ceramics. Like, it was ridiculous. We all got ceramics for Christmas, and it's actually pretty comical when I think about it now, and it's one of my fond memories that I have from her. But that was her thing, right? She made ceramics and she loved it. She absolutely loved it. I mean, maybe yours is quilting. Who knows? Whatever. But these are your wants, right? So 30% of your budget, they say, should be, go to your wants. And other, you've got entertainment there. So maybe going to the movies, maybe going out and hanging out at the bar with friends, or, again, there's another one, eating out here. So, eating out, that's always something that people like to put on, under their wants category. Okay. So we've got 50% needs, we have 30% wants, and then we have our savings and debt, and that's at 20%. Okay. And they normally, when you see this 50, 30, 20, a lot of times they have the savings first and then debt, okay? I would flip that without a doubt, okay? So I think debts need to be paid before your savings, because if you are in debt, you obviously, that's getting your, anything you save is being eaten up, right? So my favorite thing is too, when I look at this and I read articles on 50, 30, 20, they say, oh, you know, your savings should be in a high yield savings account. What? Like, what a joke, right? High yield savings account is what, like a negligible percent, like maybe 0.5 if you're lucky, and most often it's not even that, it's like 0.01%. So you know, you have to look at this and really think about it, right? So what I would say is 50, 30, 20. Okay, so that's not a bad plan. That it does work, okay? That works for a lot of people. But if you have significant debt, my suggestion is taking it and doing more of a 50, 25, 25, okay? So obviously your 50% is always going to be your needs, right? So your needs are going to take up 50% of your budget, the things you have to have in order to survive. And then after that, you're going to have your wants bucket. And I get it, we have to live, right? Everybody has to live. You want to enjoy your life, and we're not telling you not to enjoy your life. And that is one of the wonderful things about velocity banking, is that you can enjoy your life and you can do the things you want to do. You can live the life you're currently living in most cases when you do velocity banking, and it alleviates so much pressure, because what velocity banking does is it alleviates cash flow for you and makes that cash flow that you've generated go to work for you to hammer down your debts, okay? So again, there are things we want, and absolutely go for the things you want and buy the things you want. Just be careful with it. And then the other 25, I would say, would be debt payoff first. Debt always over savings, okay? So your debt payoff and then your savings come next. So here's the thing too, when you think about it, if you're looking at your 50, 30, 20, I don't even consider in this 20% what you might be saving through your 401k at work. So that's extra for you, right? So when you're looking at your 50, 30, 20 and you're looking at your budget, I always look at that as my after-tax dollars, okay? So what I'm looking at in my budget is going to be what I have to work with after taxes are paid. Now, we know that when you have a 401k through work, that's going to be taken out before taxes for the most part, okay? Yes, you can designate traditional IRA or Roth IRA. There's different things you can do there. But for the most part, you're not taking that home, so you don't feel that. That comes out before you ever see it, okay? Which is a good thing, because sometimes out of sight, out of mind, that means you're putting it off to the side and you're building your wealth without having to think about it, which is what's great about employer plans like that, okay? But aside from that, right, because you are saving then there. But aside from that, should you save money with your after-tax dollars? And the answer to that is maybe. It depends on what situation you're in, okay? So when I look at this and I say it's debt budgeting, when you find yourself in debt and it's significant debt, you need to be hammering down your debts first before anything else, right? Or almost before anything else. Your wants make a difference, and you should be able to look at your wants and have some of those too. But the main priority really should be working off this debt. We know we have to have our needs filled. That 50% we really can't touch, okay? That has to go out no matter what. But if you equal the next two buckets, instead of doing your 30-20 over here, if you equalize that a little bit, then you're going to be able to hammer down your debts more if you just kind of stick to your budget, right? Sticking to your budget is the best way that you can, even with velocity banking, as long as you stick to that budget, you know exactly when your payoff date is going to be when you calculate this. Now, the flexibility that velocity banking allows us is excellent, right? Because if there's months when we have more expenses, we can take care of those expenses without stressing out about it, just knowing that it might take us a little bit longer to pay off our debt completely. But you know what, on the flip side of that, if you have a month where you're not spending as much, you can also leave that into your cash flow, and then that goes and hammers down your debt automatically, because it's not something you have to think about or withhold or put back on a debt. It already is going against your debt, which is great. So I want to then go into the scenario that I talked about the other day with a couple here. And we went in and we looked at and said that there are multiple ways that you can pay down your debts with velocity banking. And there are, okay? So there are multiple options. And I'm actually going to bring in a fourth option. So when I talked about this couple before, I said there were potentially 3 options for them, okay? So the number one option that we that we did end up doing was the home equity. So they did use a home equity line of credit, and that was their preferred method, okay? So they decided to look at their home equity, all right? So it was the home equity first, and then we did a potential split because these guys did get a credit card. It's at 0% for 15 months, and it goes to 19.75 after the fact, okay? So for 15 months, they could use a 0% credit card, and the limit on that was $20,000. And they could split it. So they would split their debts between the $20,000 0% credit card and then a $15,000 personal line of credit that they had. Okay, so that line of credit, that was another option. So they could have done the 0% credit card and the home equity line of credit and hammered down debt if they didn't have a home equity to use, okay? Now, that option wasn't going to eliminate all of their debt because if you recall, and if not, I'm showing you now, their total debt was $70,058, okay? So if they used option 2, they wouldn't have been able to take care of all of the debt at once, but as they paid down their debts, they could start pulling in other debts, you know, as the months went by, okay? So that was certainly a viable option for them as well. Then the third option that I talked about was these credit cards that they have here, okay? They had available balances, all right? So they had availability on those credit cards. And the availability totaled, I believe it was somewhere around $43,000 in available credit. Now, it's a little bit tricky, right? Because each of those cards then, you'd have to figure out if you could get a convenience check to pull some, you know, some of those debts over. And so they would have to call and contact their credit card companies to find out if they could get convenience checks because they do have balances, right? So, you know, these cards have balances, but these cards here, actually I think this card here for sure, and these two, they had pretty significant, you know, availability. So they could have used those credit cards to help hammer down some of these debts. Again, they wouldn't be able to take care of all of the debts, but they would be able to start. And anywhere you start with Velocity Banking, no matter what, you're going to save yourself cash flow. Because remember, with Velocity Banking, when you pay off these debts, those come back into your pocket as cash flow. Because when we put our income onto our revolving lines of credit, that income then satisfies the payment for that revolving line of credit. And once it satisfies the payment, then that debt then becomes cash flow, okay? So they had 3 options to them, okay? And I really didn't talk about the third option because, again, a little more complicated. If they didn't have any other options to them, they could have tried that, but it would have taken a little bit more on their part, which is fine. That happens, right? But it would have. So now they do have one other option out there that they could have chosen, okay? And so it would have helped them a little bit as well. So now I did tell you that they chose to do the home equity line of credit at the 8.75%, okay? And so when they did that, this is what they're going to end up with, okay? So if they started off with the home equity line of credit, they're going to pay off $70,058. So all of these debts here would be wiped out, which means all of these payments then come back to them as cash flow. So the cash flow that they end up with after they pay those debts down is $1,600. Okay, so $1,615 to be exact. So $1,600 then comes back in to help them hammer down their debts. Okay, so if you recall, their living expenses were $33.79, but they have to keep their mortgage, right? Because even though they paid off all these debts, their mortgage still has to come out of that. So that means that their living expenses were going to be $45.85. So those expenses had to come out of the balances, all right? So we put in our $6,200 that they had as income, and they subtract off their expenses, which would have been the $45.85 plus any interest, okay? And we know that our interest rate is at 8.75, okay? So when we did that, we figured their home equity line of credit, okay, with a $70,000 balance, the interest that they would have paid, okay, in 48 months, so it will take them 48 months to finish this. They'll pay $12,000 overall to get rid of this debt, which is actually pretty darn good when you think about it. $12,000 over 4 years' time, they get rid of all of that debt, okay? So once they get rid of all that debt, we're going to talk about that money too, okay? So then we said, okay, option two. If they chose option two, actually, I'm sorry, this is our fourth option. So our fourth option for them could be to actually use a combination of that 0% credit card and their home equity line of credit. Now, again, a little bit more complicated. Not a big deal though. It's super easy to set up. It's just once it's the setup that's always, takes a little bit more time. But after that, you guys just pay it, you continue to do it, and it's, you don't even think about it after that. But if they did this option here, okay, which was our fourth option, can you believe that? 4 options to handle your debt and to get yourself out of debt and save money at the same time. I think that's pretty incredible. That is why I absolutely love the pay down method. I absolutely love it because it does this for you. Velocity Banking does this for you. It gives you those choices, okay? So here they are, all right? They picked 0% credit card and their home equity line of credit. And actually, they're still debating on whether they're gonna do this, and I'll show you why. Okay, so if they choose this, now we're gonna have to take $19,400, okay? $19,400 because we have a 3% cash advance fee. So that cash advance fee has to be, added back in. And so if we did that at 3%, we got $19,982, okay? So that's what was going to go on the card. Now remember, I always say this, I do not like taking you guys all the way up and leaving you no room on your cards, but we can do that in this case, right? Because we have freed up these credit cards now, so that's all available for them. If they find themselves in a pickle for some reason and they need cash flow, they will have it. So we did take them to the $19,982. And then on the HELOC, the remainder would be $50,658, okay? And so I just kind of show you here how that would look. Now, when they do this method, okay, so now remember, that credit card is 0% for 15 months. This would take them through 16 months. So they have 1 month where they're going to pay for interest, okay, which was at 19.75%. So they have 1 month here where they have to pay $33 in interest. Not a big deal, okay? So when you add that up, so the other thing is too, as they're paying down their debts, right, you have kind of 2 buckets going on. Once the 0% credit card comes off, okay, the payment comes off, we then take all of our $6,200 income and we put that then against the home equity. Because at this point in time, I split it. So the income was split. $5,000 went to the $50,000 balance, the HELOC. That was the income that went in, was the $5,000 plus all of our expenses were coming out of that. And then $1,200 was going to pay down the 0% card. Okay, so $1,205, we did a split. So what that meant was in the first 16 months, the credit card wasn't, the home equity line of credit wasn't being paid down quite as fast as it would have been, obviously, if the $6,200 would have gone in there. But did they save themselves at the end of the day? And the answer is yes, they did. Now, it wasn't super significant, but I'll take $1,000 every day, right? Any day of the week, I'll take it. So here's what happened. So they ended up paying a total of $11,047, which means they saved $1,047 over just doing the home equity line of credit, right? Because remember, the home equity line of credit was $12,094 is what they ended up paying in interest. So for a little bit more legwork up front, they still saved themselves an extra $1,000. I'll take it, okay? But that's what's great about the choices that Velocity Banking gives you, the choices that the pay down strategy gives you, okay? So they had an option. It was going to take them 47 months to do it this way. So they shaved a month off, right? That was cool too. So 47 months here versus 48 months there. All right. So let's talk about the cash flow, okay? And when we talk about budgeting and we talk about savings, I'm an advocate always of taking the savings that you have and hammering down your debt, okay? And the reason is, I'm going to really illustrate that here when we go into their mortgage, right? Because when you take your savings and hammer down your debt is always going to be more than any savings account you're ever going to earn on. It just is. That's how it is. Remember, the banks want you to park money in a savings account. They want you to be nervous, and they always tell you, hey, you have to save 6 months to 12 months of your life expenses just in case anything happens, right? So they use the scare tactic on you rather than telling you, no worries, go ahead and get a home equity line of credit, leave it sit there in case of an oh shiznit moment, right? That's what they should be doing, but that's not what they do because that's not how they would make money, okay? So they just don't. So again, I'm a big advocate of not putting the savings before your debts. Your debts always go before your savings. It just works out in every situation that I have come up with, and I'm sure there's some where it's not going to, but always using that savings will make it better for you in the long run. Okay, so this couple then came to us originally because they were going to refinance their house, okay? Now, you guys know I hate this. You know it's a big no-no in my book, and let's talk about why. So they came to us, they wanted to know if they should refinance it or if they could do this, velocity banking thing that they wanted to know more about. So they came to us and said, all right, well, we're thinking about rolling in our debts to the mortgage. And I about freaked out on them, right? And so we laugh about it later because I think my eyes got like as big as saucers. I'm like, don't do it. And so the wife, she kind of jumped back from it. She said, oh, well, why? And I, of course, went into it again. And I said, okay, this is why, right? So they have been paying on this mortgage, okay? They're 3 years in. They have $18,000, or I'm sorry, $218,000 right now is the mortgage balance. And that mortgage is at a 5.26%, okay? So they're 3 years in. In that 3-year time period, remember, mortgages are amortized. Amortized means upfront and loaded interest. All your interest then is paid up front. So you're paying more interest upfront on this than you are at the back end of the mortgage, okay? Brilliantly done, evil. It's the devil's tool. It's awful. I hate mortgages, but they are, unfortunately, a necessity for life, apparently, because everybody seems to have one. So anyway, 3 years, they've paid $28,171. Okay, so that's what they've already paid 3 years in. You want to know how much they've paid in balance? And I will double check that for you. They paid $7,000 on their principal and $28,000 in interest. That makes me sick and I can't stand it, okay? So it's a 30-year mortgage. The total interest, if they let this mortgage play out, the total interest they're going to pay is $215,855. They've just bought another house. They don't have a house, 2 houses, but they bought another one, right? At the end of 30 years, they're gonna have bought somebody else a house. The total payments that they will have paid are the total in dollar amounts for payments is $433,855. Sickening, okay? Now, they were talking about a refi and a roll-in, right? So they were gonna refi and roll balances. And if they did that, their new mortgage amount would be $288,100. That would be the new amount. The interest rate that they were being offered was 6.81%. And that 6.81% is for 30 years. Now, we all know, or those of you that have been listening and learning and watching know that that interest rate is not actually what they're going to pay. You're going to double that, and then you're going to add a 0, and that is their effective interest rate. So you take that 681, let's just round it up to 7 at this point, 14, right? They're not paying 14%, they're paying 140% for that mortgage. When you look at the fees, all the filing fees and all the crap that they put together to put this mortgage together for you, that's effectively what you're paying, all right? So if they were to do a refi and roll, their new payment's going to be $1,880, and the total interest that they would have paid would have been $388,741. That's the total amount of interest. Shoot, they could have bought 2 houses for that, right? They could have bought 2 other houses at that dollar amount. The total in their payments is going to be $676,841. To roll in $70,000 worth of debt that they could take care of in 4 years, okay? Now, but they're not. If they do that, they're going to handle it over 30 years, right? So this is the astronomical amount that your mortgage is costing you. And that's another thing that we talk about is how to hammer down that mortgage without refinancing, and there are other ways to do it, and we continue to talk about that, and we will bring more of that to you. So if they would have done this, right, not only did they spend the $388,741, but if they did it, they just reset their interest clock, and they've already paid $28,171. So that means effectively the total interest then would become $416,912 to roll in $70,000 worth of debt and to alleviate themselves, right? To alleviate all of this debt. So could they have done that? Absolutely. They could have done it. It would have made me sick, but they could have done it. So instead, they opted for the home equity line of credit. And after 4 years, right? Their cash flow then becomes, where did I put it? $4,994. Okay, that's with their mortgage payment out already. Okay, so that is essentially their new cash flow in 4 months. If you multiply that by 12, okay, for 1 full year, if you multiply this and you decided you were going to save that, that's close to $60,000. It's 59 and some change. $60,000. After 4 years, they could save $60,000 and put it wherever they want. You guys, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not going to talk to you about your, what to do with your money at that point. That is for somebody else. But I can tell you this: don't go to a financial advisor and pay them anywhere from $200 a month to $1,000 a month. Yes, I heard that. A financial advisor, not a financial advisor, a financial planner, or the people that help you with your finances. Okay, they're charging people like a monthly. Okay, they have them sign contracts and they charge them $200 to $1,000 a month to help them with finances. Do you think Velocity Banking ever enters the conversation? It doesn't. I can tell you that right now. It doesn't. So you don't need that. Please don't do that. Don't sign up for any of those services. Do this instead. Do Velocity Banking. It will save you, and you can think about this: $4,994 after 1 year. $60,000 in savings. If they put that in the market, where would they be? If they bought gold and silver, oh my gosh, where would they be? If they bought crypto, where would they be? Yes, those all have risks that are involved in them to a certain degree. However, that is your choice. And that is, again, the beauty of Velocity Banking, because now you have a choice. Have a great day, guys. Hope you found this, useful. Want to mention the giveaway once again. The first week of December, we are going to be giving away 2 $150 giveables. All you have to do is email us at I'm going to say this, Dan hates it. Email us at info@paydowndebtsolutions.com. In the subject line, just put giveaway, put your handle from wherever you come to us from, be it Rumble, be it YouTube, and then we will enter you in the drawing, and I hope you win. Obviously, there can only be 2, but good luck. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.